Hello, everyone. Sharice.termon here with EXP Realty, and I'm super excited to join you today and drop another video. Just to introduce myself, I'm Sharice.termon with EXP Realty. I am based here in Fairfield County, Connecticut. I do a lot of business in Fairfield County, but I'm also a venturist, so I kind of venture out. But I'm super excited to drop today's video because it's really near and dear to my heart. It's part of the home buying process specifically, and it's really important. It's an opportunity for buyers to, have a home checked out before you own it. I always say it's more important to know before you own. And I know, with respect to home inspections, it is an optional term as part of a contract or agreement. But like I said, I really encourage buyers to kind of know, have a full once over by a licensed building inspector so that they have an idea of what are some of the challenges, what are some of the things that they should be, taking care of maybe as soon as they move in, or something that's going to need attention at some point, just to have an idea of what's happening. Because a lot of times we go into these beautiful homes and we think, oh, it's perfect, but we are not looking from a licensed building inspector point of view. So it's really good to have that insight from an inspector. So I'm excited to be joined by a building inspector here. He's licensed here in the state of Connecticut, but also in New York, Tom Allen. And I just want to give you some background on his experience because he brings a lot of it. Okay, so he's got over 35 years of building experience. He actually served as executive director for a premier liberal arts college, where he was tasked with overseeing a $500,000 construction and renovation budget while also reducing deferred maintenance by over $300 million. So Tom actually created a comprehensive building report for the Board of Trustees. And that report was instrumental because it was for every single building on campus. Can you imagine? But it was instrumental in really planning out future, property improvements, with respect to long-term capital improvements. So Tom has a wealth of experience, and he uses a similar report that he used to use for that college. He uses a similar report today for his clients. So Tom, like, you have done it all. It seems like you've been in this industry for so long. Can you give us a little bit of background on that experience that you bring?
Sure. Well, as you said, I've been the executive director at a very premier liberal arts college. One of the things I did for the Board of Trustees, as you mentioned, I developed this very comprehensive building condition report. And I will say, very, very smart people, but you take them out of their area of expertise and they're just like everyone else. So what I did for them, I made it easy for them. I put all of my health and safety issues in this red bucket. And at the time, I put all of my other recommendations in a yellow bucket. And they always said, Tom, can you please tell us what is good on this campus? Because it dated back to 1865. Wow. So there were a lot of issues, a lot of deferred maintenance. So everything that was in good condition, we put in the green bucket. And then we added pictures and graphics to help support what we were trying to convey to the Board of Trustees. As a result, I worked with them to develop our long-term capital plan for the college, and we reduced our deferred maintenance by $300 million. So that was a huge accomplishment. Like you said, I'm using a similar report today. So the only other thing I did was I added the blue bucket. And the blue bucket is for annual preventative maintenance, cleaning gutters, changing filters, and that sort of thing. It's also for small do-it-yourself projects that we feel the homeowner should be able to tackle. Let me give you an example of that. Let's say, for instance, an electrical receptacle plate is missing. So you could literally say that a lot of things could end up in that red bucket. Mm-hmm. This could end up in the red bucket, especially if you're looking through the lens of a 3-year-old, which I tend to do a lot. So putting on that electrical plate is very simple and easy. And so something like that, I would personally put in the blue bucket. So inspectors today are required to follow the Connecticut standards of practice. This is really the minimum standard for home inspections. it's a good idea for all of your clients to review what is in that standard. There's a lot of inspectors that go above and beyond that standard as well as we do, but that's the minimum standard. And you might find it interesting to see some of the things that they're not required to do.
So what's a common misconception then on that note with respect to what people think inspectors are required to do versus what they're not?
Yeah, so inspectors are required to check the structure of the building, check the foundation, check obviously the exterior, the windows, the flashing details. There's a lot that they need to check. The roofing materials, the gutters, the chimneys, the skylights, that sort of thing. We do all of that. When they go inside, they need to check the plumbing, the drain line, the vent lines, the electrical systems, the electrical panel, the electrical service, the HVAC, the heating system, distribution system. So there's a lot that has to go into it. But there's some things that you might be surprised that they don't need to do. And that would be, for me, that's running any of the appliances in the home, the washer, the dryer, the dishwasher. So when I inspect the home as if I'm inspecting it for my son or my daughter, my niece, my nephew, because I don't want them to go in and find out they go to run the dishwasher and the dishwasher doesn't run. That is not required through the Connecticut standards of practice.
Yeah, it's funny because I've seen in my day of being a realtor, I do see those appliances commonly run. So yeah, I mean, that's great that that level of going above the Connecticut state standard is it's happening. It's great that when we encounter inspectors that do that, it's always great. You know, I love the above and beyond idea because that's what I try to do for my clients. So it's great. The last thing I think someone wants to do is move into their home on moving day and they need to run some some dishes and the dishwasher doesn't work or whatever. So it's always great that they know that. And it's funny because I had an inspection recently where the dishwasher was run and there was a leak. So, those are the times.
I can't tell you how many times we run the dishwasher and the hose is leaking, something is leaking in the dishwasher. And of course you have to stop everything, clean everything up. That's what you're checking for. You're checking that these appliances are functional at the time of that inspection.
That's right. So true. So as we talk about today's topic, we're just, the home inspection, first of all, just to give buyers who have not ever gone through this process some perspective, it's done on the front end of the transaction. So let's say, hey, you just got that congratulatory call from me saying that your offer was accepted. The next part of the process is moving towards the inspection. Connecticut allows up to 10-day window to have your inspection completed. So with regard to the real estate process, everything comes with a deadline. And so we have to use that window and get things done so that you can know before you own. So today, we're going to focus on more so health and safety items because a home inspection can take hours, right? Depending on the size of the property, it could take a few hours. And so we're not going to dig into every aspect of the home inspection, but we're going to focus on health and safety because that is paramount, right? When you own a home, you want to know that you're owning a safe home, right? So we're going to focus on health and safety with respect to kitchens and baths. Kitchens, we know, is the heart of the home. And so we want to know, what are some of the things, Tom, that we should be focused on with respect to health and safety items in the kitchen?
Good question. There's certainly the things that I would focus on in the kitchen are primarily going to be the electrical systems in the home. So if we're basing our inspection on today's building standards. So not when the home was built. If the home was built in 1940, I'm going to base my inspection from a safety standpoint from today's standards. So I'm going to identify the items that are in that kitchen that do not meet today's standard. And a lot of those come in under the category of the electrical systems. So back in the 1940s, ground fault circuit interrupters had not been invented at that time. They didn't come out until the late 60s, early 70s. And then they're always changing. building codes are always changing. We're trying to keep up with them all the time. So for a long time, ground fault receptacles were required only 6 feet from the kitchen sink, just those receptacles. Today, any receptacle that serves the kitchen counter should be on a ground fault receptacle. Ground fault receptacles prevent electrocutions. So what they do is they measure the amperage going out to the load. Like when I say the load, that might be the toaster. And so if that's drawing, I don't know, let's say 5-6 amps, it measures that amperage coming back, and it wants to see the same amperage that goes out. They want to see the same amperage coming back. So if there's a difference of 6 milliamps, that receptacle will trip instantaneously to protect the individual. So that's a really big area in the kitchen, is ground fault receptacles that serve the kitchen counter today would need to be. Now, the homeowner's not required to upgrade the home. So we're giving you these ideas that you could upgrade the home to make your home more, safer for your family.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want that, right? And so, as Tom mentioned, it's required today. So for instance, if you owned a home and you wanted to do a full kitchen renovation, constructural things, you would have to go out and get a permit from your town, wherever you're located. And as part of a condition to having that permit approved to be able to perform the work, they would require upgrading to today's standard. Is that correct, Tom?
That's right. When you do a renovation in the home, then you may be required to upgrade that part of the home or some other areas of the home. Another area that we see a lot of deficiencies are underneath the kitchen sink. If there's any receptacles underneath that kitchen sink, they too must be on a ground fault receptacle today. Have any appliances plugged in under there, the trash compactor or the garbage disposal, maybe the dishwasher's actually plugged in under there, that should be on a ground fault receptacle.
And how often, more times than not, probably, do you find that they're not?
More times than not.
Yeah.
We, like I said, we do check all the receptacles around the kitchen counter. The ones that we put in the red bucket are the ones right next to the kitchen sink. The other receptacles, I put in our yellow bucket.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll find loose wiring underneath the kitchen sink, or somewhere else in the kitchen or in the home. This is when somebody had something connected and they disconnected it and never put the proper terminations on those wires. So now those wires are just floating freely. So those wires should be secured in a junction box with a cover over it so nobody can get hurt.
Yeah, you actually performed an inspection for me a few years ago that had wires just hanging underneath the kitchen sink, and that freaked me out, right? Whether it's live or not, like, I don't think anyone wants to encounter a wire because you're not going to know initially even whether it's live or not, right? So
yeah, exactly. And it may not be live at the time of the inspection, but it could possibly become live after the inspection. So, we put something like that into our red bucket.
Right. Yep. Right. That's really important. So
the one that you're talking about was probably a wire that went to the garbage disposal, and they took the garbage disposal out. That's possible.
Right.
And then that wire's just hanging there.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's good stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the kitchen. I think I heard you say once, even like something like a stove, right? You open the door to a stove. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So today's standards, we like to recommend having an anti-tip bracket on the range or on the stove. So let's say, for instance, you're cooking Thanksgiving dinner and you open up the door and you pull the turkey out, to check the temperature or whatever. Maybe you're basting it. And then you have another pot of water that's sitting on top of the stove. And then when you put that extra weight down on the door for the range, it could tendency for that range to tip. So this anti-tip bracket that just gets secured to the floor and to the wall and slides underneath the foot of the range stops it from tipping over.
Yes.
So a simple bracket like that, typically, I think you can get it on Amazon for about $9.
A $9 fix that could save, I mean, catastrophic, right? Like that could be a horrible injury. So that's great that, you know, those are just little things that are actually big things, but little things that we don't think about. I think we just go on assuming that, oh, if I open that door, it's not going to tip, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, another area is the kitchen faucet. So if you have a single lever kitchen faucet, in this case, a single lever, where you pull the lever towards you and it's either hot or cold, or you push it back, and same thing. We recommend when you pull it toward you that should be cold water. And the reason why we say that is because if you have a young child that's getting ready for dinner, maybe they're cooking in the kitchen with their mom or their dad, and it's time to wash up, they'll push the chair up to the kitchen sink and they're stretching to reach that faucet. And so when they do reach it, they'll pull it toward them. And so you wouldn't want them to pull it and have it come out.
Right.
And so that's a very simple, easy fix that literally takes probably 5 minutes by just switching the 2 lines underneath the kitchen sink.
Yeah, that's, again, it's the little things. As they say, the devil is in the details, and that is a detail, another detail that we should be cognizant of. So thank you for sharing that. And I love the idea of you thinking in terms of not just the adults that are buying the home, but the children, right? The little children that will live there or that will visit even.
Yeah, that's extremely important. You know, I look
Yeah.
at it as if like a 2 or 3-year-old all the time.
Yeah,
You know, because they can get themselves into trouble very, very quickly.
quickly.
Like I had said, if you have that electrical switch plate off of the receptacle and they get their little fingers in there, they could get themselves into some serious
Or
trouble.
they'll want to stick things in there. And believe it or not, I
Yeah.
did that as a kid.
Yes.
Thank God I survived, but I did
Yes.
do that as a, yeah.
That's right.
So, so that's the kitchen. So moving into the bathroom, I mean, that's another place where there's water and, you know, other hazards. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's the same scenario in the bathroom. Electrical ground fault receptacles that need to be next to the sink. So all of those need to be ground faulted. You're right next to water. The possibility of getting yourself into trouble there. Definitely have a ground fault receptacle there with the reset button right on it. I mean, literally the entire home. You don't have to do the whole entire home with ground fault receptacles, but today codes are changing all the time. But in the bathroom, certainly have the ground fault receptacle. Another area, you know, because you have water on the floors, you could slip and fall. The one thing I would not recommend ever having in the bathroom would be a carpet. Don't have wall-to-wall carpeting in the bathroom. Not to say that that's a safety hazard, but it's just another area that we identify as a deficiency. But anyway, if another area would be the window. So if you have a window in your bathroom that you can operate that window at, I think it's got to be like 44 inches off the floor.
Yeah.
So that window today should be safety glass. So a lot of homes don't have safety glass, but we just like to recommend maybe if you wanted to upgrade that glass, to upgrade it to safety glass, because you're within 5 feet. If you're within 5 feet of the shower or tub and you slip and fall against that window, you could seriously get hurt. And that's another safety issue that's in the bathroom that's unique to that specific room.
Yeah. So how would someone identify that being a safety glass? Like, you know, if we were going through a showing, what is something we should look for?
Yeah, so down in the corner of the glass, either on the left or on the right side, there's like a little emblem there that actually spells it out. Maybe it may say tempered, may say safety glass. But if you were to slip and fall and break that glass, you want that to break into 1,000 little pieces instead of into big pieces of glass that could actually injure you pretty quick.
Gotcha. Lord have mercy. Another safety tip. And again, especially as first-time home buyers, these are just not things that we think about. We're thinking more like, okay, the window, it's not broken. It looks, it moves, it goes up and down, but it's the type of window we should be, that we should be mindful of in certain areas of our home, which is, it makes total sense.
Correct.
Yeah. So Tom, with respect to inspections, we just touched on just health and safety. You start external, you move internal, you go up to the roof, you're checking foundation, you're doing all of that visually. How long of a process in general would you say it takes for the average home inspection?
So we generally spend it about 3 hours on a home. And then, of course, and part of that process might be doing our report. So we take a lot of pictures on our inspection. So we basically report as we go. So we're building our report as we're going. So we generally get our reports out very, very quickly, typically the same day. We certainly don't hand over the report at the inspection, but we have a very, very good draft at that point. And then by the time we get back to the office, we can go back and fine tune that report. But I would say generally home inspection of, home, and to me, it doesn't make any difference if it's a 1,500 square foot home or a 2,500 square foot home. It basically takes the same amount of time. And so, people might say, well, why does it take the same amount of time? Well, you have all of the same components in a 1,500 square foot home. You have the kitchen, you have the bathroom, you have the heating system, you have the electrical system, the plumbing system. So you have all of those same systems. It doesn't really, you can basically gain some time when you're inspecting a much larger home. But for the smaller homes, 1,500 to 2,000, about the same amount of time.
Yeah, makes total sense. And I knew that was going to be the answer. I mean, it has all the same mechanicals, it has all this, the electrical, the plumbing, it's all there and it all needs to be checked. Now you are doing visual inspections, and from working with you, I understand that if you feel or find based on your inspection that something needs further evaluation, you will recommend that your client, because again, they're your client in the home inspection process, right? So I am not hiring you, the buyers are hiring you to perform, and you're working for them in their best interest. So if you are instructing them that something needs further evaluation, that means you're then telling them to bring in a licensed contractor, such as a plumber, a specialty, right, contractor, to look further into potential issues.
Yes,
right?
Yes, that's correct. Generally, I like to do my inspections, and then generally at the end of the inspection, I'll take the clients around and we'll talk about everything that we saw on our inspection. And then we can talk in a little bit more detail about that as well, and what type of qualified person they may want to have take a closer look at that. As you mentioned, this is a visual inspection, so we're not opening up walls to take that to a further inspection. We're just coming in, and it doesn't matter what's in our way. We can't typically move things within the home. We do move some things. We also send a message out to our selling agent, hoping that they'll work with us to have the homeowners clear things away from, furnaces and boilers and electrical panels, so we can get to them. A lot of times you open up the vanity in the bathroom and it's just filled with everything, and you're trying to inspect the plumbing underneath that cabinet. So, a lot of those things get in your way. One thing I didn't mention when we were talking about the bathroom was mold. We do a visual inspection looking for mold, certainly in the bathroom and in the kitchen. In the kitchen, underneath that kitchen sink, we do find areas of mold there. Some people might say, oh, it's only mildew. Well, mildew is a form of mold. So even if I see mildew in the shower, it's a form of mold that should be cleaned up. But certainly underneath underneath that vanity sink in the bathroom, sometimes you'll find mold there. Certainly in the showers and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
that's great.
we identify that health hazard as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for highlighting that as well. You know, Tom, this is great. I really appreciate you joining me, first of all, because again, the home inspection process is a critical one. It's really important. I know we came out of sort of this, high demand market throughout the pandemic, and it brought out a ton of buyers, low inventory, and buyers were really doing things, making decisions to win the bid. And one of those decisions were waiving inspection. So I always encourage my buyers. Now it's up to the buyers to decide how they want to handle this, but I encourage buyers to have a home inspection because it is important to know what you're buying. Even if you don't plan to negotiate any of the items that come up on the report, it's important to at least have something in hand. And when you move in, you kind of know, okay, you start to create the honey-do list, right? The list of things that need to be done and prioritize that list accordingly. So it's better to know before you own. So Tom, thank you. Thank you for joining me today and discussing these topics. And I definitely invite you on to discuss more topics with respect to this process, because there's so many aspects to this, to the inspections.
Well, thank you very much for having us.
All right. Thank you. And have a great day. Okay.
Thank you. You too. Bye now.